Hey everybody, welcome to our bi-weekly off the cuff live on the spot discussion of our upcoming newsletter stories. I'm Paul Moderman. With me, of course, is the amazing Yelena Perfilieva. Uh
Hi
Say hi,
everyone.
please. Yeah.
Hello.
Um and this week we are like usually we talk for I don't know 4 or 5 minutes before we get started. This time we are coming in hot. Like
Yep.
there is no I have no idea what Yelena's gonna pitch. She has no idea what I'm gonna pitch. It's gonna be chaos. It's gonna be mayhem. I am coming up from a case of COVID. I'm just climbing back up the hill. So I'm like loopy on drugs. You guys, it's gonna be crazy.
Awesome.
So with that being said, I'll start.
All right.
um
You go, Paul.
I promised an amazing show, so here we go. Um, I'll share my screen. Or my Chrome. So this time I have three. Usually I have like four or five, and I'm just trying to whatever. This time I have three. Um, I've been seeing a lot lately. I think we all have been seeing
Yeah.
this year, especially toward the end of this year. There's been a lot of the big tech players announcing layoffs and staff reduction and that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I think we've talked about maybe a little bit here and there on our newsletter too, but I really wanted to dive a little deeper because one of the pieces of that's interesting to me, Yelena, is
Mm.
like I know that in the grand scheme of things, it's a relatively small number of people kind of out there floating in the universe now, but still it is thousands of engineers, right? It's
Mhm.
thousands of these developers and other technical folks who have been cut loose from Facebook and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. What's kind of A, what's going on there, but B, I think what might even be more interesting is to think about the folks who have been at those places for a long time, going out into the world and finding employment at other places that are not the FANG places.
Mhm.
What's their experience like? And then not controversially, but conversely, like what's it like hiring folks who are coming from those places? And what's their expectations of things? Because I can imagine none of the jobs that I have worked as a nerd has been really comparable to like a Facebook engineering
Yeah.
job. Maybe not in terms of like engineering challenges, but in terms of like company culture and perks and benefits
Yeah.
and
And
all this kind of
just
stuff.
structure, yeah.
Yeah, just the very
And
different.
size even. Yeah.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff is totally different than what I'm accustomed to as a nerd. And so there's kind of this like, at least from the outside, it seems like there's a small little, maybe migration isn't the right word, but
Mhm.
a little caravan, I suppose, of folks going across that border, you know what I mean? And and that I
Little
didn't mean to
trickle.
I didn't mean to invoke that imagery.
Nice,
God.
nice, nice
Uh,
picture. Right.
um
Like scratch that.
Aaron, oh no, it's too late. It's recorded forever now. Um,
Oh,
oh no, the hard drive can't erase those bits.
do over.
Um,
Yeah.
but just imagining some of those folks
Yeah.
going and getting jobs like I had or have is this weird thing. So anyway, there's a podcast episode here. I like this acceleration economy cloud wars stuff. That's a great source. They publish lots of cool stuff.
Mhm.
My thing here is I'm gonna listen to this podcast and give some thoughts and reflections on that kind of stuff too, because I think there is a big difference between the the Twitter engineering experience and the typical like enterprise engineering kind of stuff of especially like if you're working on internal enterprise apps, that's a very different thing than working at Facebook engineering kind of stuff. And it's very curious to me to think about that stuff.
Mhm.
So somewhere inside there is a hot take, and I'm gonna find it and show it to the world.
Yeah, I just hope that some of the, well, I mean, I hope not for those people, but for the companies that will take advantage of it, that people who got caught in those layoffs were good. Because I
Yeah,
know, I mean, it happened to me. It can happen to anyone.
yeah,
We had many people, like even very well known SAP developers in community like Rich Heil and Thomas Young, they were almost
Yeah,
almost laid off from SAP, and it's not
yeah,
secret. All of that was made public. I was laid off myself from IBM, and I know in those massive number layoffs, it's very frequently really good people can get caught in them very easily.
yeah, yeah.
There could be some people who are, let's just be honest, maybe just kind of not really awesome.
Hanging on.
So it can be really mixed, yeah, really mixed group of people, but it definitely, I think it presents opportunities for both companies who are hiring, but also those people, because to be honest, for me, looking back, sometimes what I thought was just very unfortunate actually turned out for the best. So I
Yeah,
just, yeah, I hope for those people specifically, I hope that they find much better opportunities. And yeah, best
yeah,
best of luck to them.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Well said. Best of luck to them. Um, okay. Number two from my side. Uh, Story out there. I'm just vaulting off from this. SAP UI5. What's new and when is it coming? And the reason this catches my eye is that I've written some books and stuff like that. I've written, I think, three books that include UI5 code in them, and I hardly ever talk about UI5 in this in our newsletter.
I was just gonna
It's
say, going back to the roots, Paul, all of a sudden.
so I'm coming back to play the hits, guys. But I
Mm.
am curious about what's new in the SAP UI5 universe because it has played such a role not only in my career of late, but also in mine and many people's experience of enterprise and specifically SAP development and experience that it's a little bit silly of me not to sort of keep knocking on that door because it's a fertile ground where there's lots of things happening on the SAP side of things. But also it's an interesting space because it's kind of unique in the enterprise world, the UI5 approach to things, and SAP's continued investment in it, is something that is interesting, and it's only to my detriment that I don't keep paying more attention and writing more about it. So, dear listeners and readers, expect some snippets and updates from me on UI5 based on Oliver's piece here, but probably expanding into some other things. Because yeah, I mean, I may not write UI5 code every day anymore, but there's no doubt that it's influential in so many ways in the universe
Mm.
of SAP stuff these days.
Awesome.
So that's that. And
It's
then
gonna be expert opinion.
yeah, well, we'll see. Some might call me an expert, some might call me a hack. We'll see how that goes. Did you see that the DeepMind had this thing called Alpha Code that they released?
Mm.
It's another AI thing. It's another AI thing. Um, so what it is just like these GPT things. It it, it
Oh no.
specializes in creating
Like
or
crappy
hallucinating.
code.
Well, it creates code that does better than at least half of
Mm.
human participants in coding competitions,
Oh, sweet.
which is like a very interesting sort of niche place to be, right? I
Mm.
don't know if you've heard of these coding competitions where they
Yeah,
have
I've
like
heard it's always,
it's it's
yeah,
very
like
it's like
just
very
why.
specific, like
Yeah.
um kind of like math word problem-y kind of things,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then your job is to write efficient and slick code that that solves the problem that's set out in the problem there.
Mm.
And so this DeepMind created this thing called Alpha Code, which generates code that solves those code competition problems. And in this case, they're, according to their evaluation of it, better than half of human participants in those competitions. But where I'm going with this is not just that, but also there's this great thing by Peter Norvig, who is kind of famous in both the Python and the AI universes. He took one of the he took one of the um, programs that this thing generated, and he gave it um, a code review.
Sweet.
It was it was really it was really funny because you can see how it's really smart but also really dumb in some ways,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and it injects little arrays it doesn't need and never uses and like things like that, right? And so I thought the next obvious iteration of this is called alpha code. Obviously, the next iteration of this has got to be like alpha nitpick or like
Alpha code
alpha
review.
alpha code review or alpha team lead or whatever, right?
Mm.
Where it can take a program, you put a program and it complains about the program in some like the AI will spit out like, you know, cranky little comments like these things here about the program, and then like automate their code review process or whatever, right? That like that's probably then one of the next targets for all of these code generating tools is like, how do I use these things like actually on a team at
Mm.
a company, right? And one of the things would be doing code reviews. And wouldn't it be great if I could just make a thing also write the code and then a separate AI just like review the code of my other AI,
Mm. AI peer
right?
review. Interesting.
Yeah. So I wanna talk a little bit about this and then uh, put in a pitch for my own alpha peer review or alpha code review or alpha nitpick or something like that in the newsletter as well.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned those code competitions because to me it was always kind of really bizarre idea because to me there is as much to coding as like art as
Yeah.
science, and
Yeah.
many times like we do like peer code reviews. It's like any developer can review other developers'
Hmm.
work. And to me, sometimes a code that could be, let's say, objectively maybe more performant or maybe I would say performance is typically it's not really there might be marginal difference. It's more like maybe it's using like an ABAP newer syntax more actively or something like that.
Hmm.
In many languages there are different ways to write essentially
Yeah.
the same code.
Hmm.
But if I'm having trouble really reading it and understanding right away what it does, and that I think is an issue with a lot of new ABAP syntax because it is people criticize ABAP for being verbose, but to me it's actually an advantage because it can be read even by functional person and understood easily. But with all those
Hmm.
hashtags, sometimes I honestly I look at it, it's like could be Egyptian hieroglyphs as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
I honestly, unless I really dig in and go sometimes even into documentation to look up specific syntax, I cannot tell what it is even doing, and that's not good in my opinion. So it's yeah, I'm not sure if it really can be so objectively judged all the time. I don't know.
There's and that's one of the things. So I totally agree with you on the objectiveness of code reviews.
Mm.
Like how could you be objective about that kind of stuff? Because
Yeah.
I very much am in the same camp as you. Like code is just as much art as it is science.
Mm,
And like there's been snippets of code that I've either reviewed or like once in a blue moon I'll write code and I'll be like, wow, that wound up being really elegant. I can't believe I did that. Right?
mm,
Like where it's like coming into work that morning, I wouldn't have thought that I would do that thing. But
mm,
there it is, and it happened in 10 minutes or whatever, right? And it has this very like it has this quality of art of like where like the painter goes into his paint studio or whatever and is then
it's
surprised by
art
like,
studio.
oh my God, like the like I can't believe I painted
Mm,
this landscape. I wasn't even thinking about landscapes today, right?
mm,
Like that just like I love that part of code. And I kind of agree with you too about ABAP in that like one of when I started on the ABAP team where I first learned ABAP, I was already, I mean, I think similar for you. Like I had been working with other languages for a little while
mhm,
before, and it was like it looked strange at first, but I very much fell in love with it has a ABAP has this like this a linguistic
mhm,
quality all its own that
mhm,
is very that is very uh sentency.
Yeah.
It's very
Reads like a story sometimes.
yeah, like
If
you
you
could
do it
almost
right, at least.
like I could put my daughter to sleep at night reading her code from the ABAP storybook, right?
Selecting
Yeah.
chapter one.
Um uh and so I always thought that was a great feature of ABAP
Mm,
was the like I can hear myself speaking ABAP in my head when I write ABAP. Um and while I'm a person who is a little bit attracted to new syntactic features and I like those little elegant things, I
mm-hmm.
also very much like the old school. It's just a sentence on a screen,
Yeah.
and yet that it's doing the same thing as like some obscure block of hieroglyphs that I was doing in C or
Mm,
Java or whatever,
yeah.
right? That
Yep.
stuff is I like that feature of ABAP for sure. Anyway, that's my soapbox on this one. And so those are my bits. I can seed the screen to you here.
Awesome. All right. My turn to share the screen. All right.
So
So
Yelena's
my
time to
first,
shine.
yeah, my first subject will be ABAPConf, ABAPConf. So like you, Paul,
Mm,
are going back to SAP UI5. I'm going also back to ABAP.
play the hits.
And yeah, so I could not attend it live, unfortunately, because it runs in European time zone, and
Hmm.
the time where I could physically overlap with it, unfortunately, I had my, well, not unfortunately, but I just had my primary job at the same time. But I did watch the recording, at least the English language part because it runs in a lot of it is in German, even though presentation slides are sometimes in English, and you
Hmm.
strangely can, even in German, sometimes understand like roughly 70% of it
Hmm.
in the SAP world.
Hmm.
So there are lots of very, very interesting sessions. So I think I will do pretty much like we have been doing, kind of roundup conference posts. This will probably be my roundup of ABAPConf and just pointing the readers to presentations that they found interesting.
Hmm.
It was funny. There were some presentations from Lars Schwam and his colleague, and Tobias, who was kind of um, I know, directing this whole conference. He was one of the organizers. And
Hmm.
before they started, he said that he saw the presentation beforehand and he did not quite understand totally what was this about. And it was pretty much my impression as well, because when they started, like you know, you think you know things about ABAP, but for a while there, I was just super confused. I think it's just such a maybe cutting edge stuff that
Yeah.
maybe as an expert in ABAP, I think Lars have moved into different like plane of existence possibly than me mere mortal ABAPers. So which is a good thing. I think we all need to aspire to kind of follow him
Yeah.
eventually,
Yeah.
and then hopefully. So my second
Just,
story,
he's
yeah.
ascended to
So
ABAP Nirvana.
exactly. Exactly. So my second story will be, this is where our reality meets kind of our daily jobs as well. As we have just posted announcements today, the review platform where we were hosting our
Yeah.
newsletter, it's being
Yeah.
discontinued by Twitter, and because of that, we suddenly need to migrate
Wait,
to another platform.
Yelena, are you
Yeah.
saying that there's things happening at Twitter? I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know, something, yeah, some kind of news. Yeah, so
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
you know,
hilarious.
usual, yeah,
Yeah.
Twitter stuff, something. Usual CEO, CIO, whatever, some big potatoes are making trouble there. So now we are essentially facing migration from one newsletter platform to another
Oh yeah.
platform, and it's like, you know, there is my one of my favorite stand-up comedians there is Edie Izzard. He's comedian and actor and just well-known person. He
Yeah.
has one very good stand-up. It's a record. It's available, I think, on DVD and streaming. It's called Dressed to
Just to
Kill.
kill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and one of the bits he does there, he talks about Anglican Church, I think, and how their subjects are just sometimes totally random. They sound like something they just took out of Sunday magazine and suddenly they're just talking about it. So my thought process here was kind of somewhat similar. And his example was like, oh, I'm like read about like this fashion trend, and this rather makes me think about our Lord Jesus. So to me, my kind of thought process is not unlike that. It's like I'm thinking about our newsletter platform migration, and this rather makes me think about SAP ECC eventual migration to SAP S/4HANA. And when I think that, then immediately I kind of see quite a few parallels. Obviously, our migration is nowhere near the scale of ERP migration for large companies, but surprisingly, there are, I think, quite a few teachable moments where I think we can share with the world, from our migration to your migration, so to say.
That's
So
funny.
that will be my that
That's a
will be
good
my
angle. By the way,
yeah I
so two things. One, I love Eddie Izzard. I love Eddie. Back up on my shelf over there is his biography. So
oh
I'm a
awesome.
huge Eddie Izzard fan. Um, but two, I had never heard of S/4HANA movement. Am I
Hmm.
just am I just behind the curve here on this? Is this a new thing?
I think we're like maybe I don't know 2 years behind already.
Am
Yeah,
I
there is
just
a deadline,
I
and
didn't
yeah,
know, but I
so
mean like
that's.
this specifically this program, like the
Hmm.
S/4HANA movement program.
Oh yeah, movement program. Yeah, that's new to me. I just
Yeah.
discovered this page. I think
Okay. Okay.
SAP, to their credit, they have been, I think, doing much better with setting up their content and like FAQs. So this page is actually not bad. I mean, about time they announced this deadline a few years
Yeah, no kidding.
ago, and now there is finally some decent, looking page to help customers. There are some links to content. Yeah, discovery offerings, all kinds of stuff. The only thing that's kind of lacking here, which is again typical for SAP, sadly, it's examples. Because again, end of month closing is like, I mean, how many times the same
Yeah.
story has been told? I lost count at this point. And yeah, automated financial postings. It's all of those customer success stories. They seems to be so heavily focused around financials. And
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just because financial people just love to talk about this more than others, but there ought to be, I think, much more to this. So I think
Yeah.
that's where SAP could do slightly
Hmm.
better than three tiles, kind of the same financial stuff. So yeah, but
Yeah.
overall, I mean, pretty decent page, I would say, even by SAP standards. So yeah.
Yeah.
So if anyone is looking to migrate from ECC to S/4HANA, here is nice link for you.
Don't
And
forget
my
to use
yeah,
code Enterprise Nerds at checkout for
investors to get a 10% discount on SAP Rise.
on S/4HANA. Yeah.
Yeah, reach out to us, SAP. We're gonna put
Yeah.
a plug for you. All right. So I have working title for my story. It's going to be likely called The Great Migration. So unless
Nice.
I find something edgier. All right. So, and third item. So I'm also thinking about kind of careers, just like you, Paul, with your tech layoff stories. I think it's the beginning of the year. I mean, end of one year, beginning of another kind of
Yeah.
turn of times. It's
Yeah.
very typical for many people to just consider, what's the next move for me and where do I want to go? I think if someone is very happy where they're at, it's excellent. But I think many professionals just take this time to reflect on their past, choices and just think maybe what could be the next step for them.
Yeah.
So I just want to maybe elaborate more on next steps for different roles of SAP professionals, because we have written about architects before just a couple of issues ago. And this time I want to talk more about potential different paths for developers and maybe other professionals. So in SAP, thankfully, we have very many opportunities in all directions, what we call like vertical and horizontal. So going up, kind of moving up career ladder, but also maybe thinking about making move into just slightly different specialties. That's
Yeah.
always an opportunity out there. And SAP, I think there was a career corner before on SAP community, but they just recently moved it into a group. And group, it's like a relatively new concept on community. It's something like a maybe Discord channel or Slack channel, something like that.
Mm.
It's you have to specifically register for the groups. It's seems like a maybe additional authorization or something, slightly different profile. You can see like this is my profile. It doesn't have even my pictures that I typically have. So this is where I think professionals can talk about all the different career related stuff. So there is, yeah, advertisement to become like paid expert, and I think even some job posts. So it's very, very kind of mixed bag of all the different content.
Mm.
So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
So these are my three stories. And
That
yeah.
is so thank you, Elena, for sharing those things. So that is a preview of what is to come in the next issue of the Boring Enterprise Nerdletter. So guys, make sure you subscribe, smash the bell to get notified, like, comment, share, uh, create a TikTok of this video and put it on TikTok. Take a link of that TikTok and put it on Twitter. Share that tweet on LinkedIn. Share that LinkedIn post to your friends in WhatsApp. Just make a big circle of sharing all this stuff, and we'll eventually conquer the world. So, on behalf of Boring Enterprise Nerds, thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.